Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Friends with Death Benefits. I'm your host, Tiff Mussman. And alongside me, as always, the only man I know who's been wearing the same costume since he was 3 years old, Justin Paulson.
That's not true. I got a bunch of costumes. You have no idea what the things I have in my closet. That's not true. I don't keep my stuff in a closet. That's what organized people do.
I just find my costumes on the floor.
Yeah.
Throw it together.
Tiff accidentally butt dialed me on Halloween, and she was frantically looking for a Halloween costume in her basement. I know what that looks like. I know what you were doing.
Yeah, okay. You figured it out.
If you weren't, then you're just being weird in your basement. So I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. But
yes, so Halloween.
Yeah.
It happened yesterday.
It did. We're not going to pretend there's radio magic here. We do pre-tape our episodes. Hopefully everyone enjoyed that. Had a good time. Yeah. It was a weird week though, right? I think we both had definitely a weird week.
Shitty week.
Yeah. I will say before we get into all that, we had shitty weeks like for our own reasons. But that being said, we both had kind of good weeks in the way that we got a bunch of really great feedback over the past week or so from different people about the first episode, especially great response. Thanks to everybody that listened to it, liked the page on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I think we kind of had a feeling people were going to be able to get something out of it, but I think our expectations were even exceeded when we've, some of the stories we've heard and different things. So
yeah. And like, if you've been one of those people who have been brave enough to reach out, whether it's, come up to one of us in public face to face, or even send a message and be like, hey, and just the transparency that's come with this has been so exactly what I wanted from it. Was just, there's a certain therapeutic nature to like being able to share with other people about their experiences of what they're going through. So if that's one of you, then I really appreciate it.
Definitely
really appreciate it. So I've just been kind of messaging you a whole lot this week, just about all the craziness that's been going through my head, and thought we could talk about that a little bit. It's been a weird week. I think it's gonna forever be a weird week. I'm in a perpetual weird week.
Yeah, dude, it's like the worst. I was gonna say the worst Bill Murray movie ever.
Yeah. So what day was it? Monday. It snowed a little, and I was driving, and it was like this beautiful crisp morning with that beautiful first blanket of snow where the green grass is still poking up through the snow, and I have this moment where you're just like, oh yeah, this is Iowa. This is what it looks like. And then that kind of moment of this is really beautiful goes to like, whoa, like this is the first snowfall of many that like my son's not going to be here with me. And so immediately it's like, womp, womp, and then I voice note you and just say, hey, this really awful moment happens. And then you just make it more awful by countering me with more terribleness.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. It's when it rains, it pours for sure. Yeah, that's it's that's you're right though. It's that first snow, like the one that you like enjoy before it all starts to suck. But it's just it's evidence that the world just keeps going on unapologetically.
Yep. Yeah.
It doesn't care what you care about.
No. Yeah. So there's been a lot of moments of that this week, and trying to do a little bit more normal, like go to like a Halloween get together and force myself to scramble in my basement to find a costume like 30 minutes before the party started, just because I knew it was a good idea to try to do something normal. And man, yeah, had some good times, had some good laughs, played some great games, and then end up sitting in my car for half an hour with my husband while we sob uncontrollably.
I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that you were with me for an hour in between the two.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't want to say it. I mean, you know how I feel. But yeah, so it's just a lot of that up and down, ebb and flow kind of thing. And yuck, a little bit of that. So how about you? What's your week been like?
Rough. Really rough. So it's interesting because like this whole thing, the idea of grief kind of came from the fact that we both lost somebody, which is the main focus. But it's interesting how you can like grieve for things that are still like not necessarily people you've lost, but like ideas or things that are happening. Like you can grieve because of negative things happening in your life that aren't always necessarily just losing a person. Kind of compounds things a little bit.
Like,
but,
can you give me an example?
Yeah, so I live in a house that belonged to my mom. My grandpa bought it brand new in 1950. My mom grew up in that house. I lived there with my mom when I was younger. I lived there again in my 20s when I was trying to make it as a musician. She let me live in the basement, took care of her. She was getting pretty old and liked to have somebody around. So we both kind of won. A lazy 20-something-year-old took full advantage of that. But and then I moved out for a year and met my wife, and my grandma passed away, and we moved back into that house to take care of it. And so of my 35 years, I did the math. I've lived there 22 of them, 3 different times.
Oh, wow.
I have, when Mom died, I've gone through pictures of like stuff that's on the wall that was on the wall in the 60s that's still there.
Oh.
Like this clock in my living room, I had no idea was because I don't know how mentally healthy it is, but when my grandma died in 2012, I kept a lot of the stuff that she had in the house the same way because it was comforting, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
And let that crazy behavior go on still 8 years later. And
it's kind of enabling.
Yeah, whatever. Fine. And that's fine. We'll blame her for that later. And there's pictures of like me as a baby, my mom as a baby, like in the same spot in this house. And it was always understood and spoken out loud to many people that when my mom did pass, which we were hoping was going to be much farther down the line than this last June, that house would go to, if I hadn't bought it from her outright, to me and my sister, and we would figure out a way to work that out. And I think me and my sister had both agreed that it was my home, so we'd find a way to get her compensated somehow. And unfortunately, none of that happened because my mom died young. And did not, from what we understand right now, have a will. And I have a stepfather who can't stand me, has never been able to stand me, has nothing to gain by messing with me at all, other than he likes to do it. And unfortunately, because he's my mom's husband, even though they were somewhat estranged, he's next of kin, and from what I understand, the law's on his side. And
so you're about to lose this house.
He will eventually have it in his name, and then his intention is to put us out. And there's very little that I can do about losing my family home, which is like kind of like grieving that too.
Sure.
Kind of. And it's weird because I'm living in it now, and like I've always been there, and like no one not related to me has ever lived in that house.
Right.
And,
your grandpa bought or built it or bought it
brand
new.
Bought it brand new, and like although there's like a lot of woodworking in the kitchen that he did. I mean,
so this is just like this is an heirloom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it sucks because losing my mom is more than enough. Should be enough, but now I have to he wants to take this last thing away from me. And a lot of people have said like the one thing out of that might be that it's the last thing connecting me to him.
Yeah.
And then I don't have to worry about that anymore, but
it's the last thing connecting you to.
Right. So this week we found out that he opened up her estate, which could mean any time in the next couple months to 6 months, depending on what all goes down. There's a very real chance that we'll be moving out, and we don't know what that looks like. We don't know if right now it's having a hard time potentially getting a home loan from anybody. So, and it's with COVID, you know, everybody's struggling. So it's interesting. It's been a rough week. It's been a lot of uncertainty. A lot of just heaviness, kind of.
Yeah. Losing
It's
the
been just a dark, kind of just heavy
week.
Like a big wet blanket over you. Like I just couldn't. It was hard to shake this weekend, especially.
I think it's so interesting too because you wear it on you. Like I could see, you know, I know you, but it'd be like if I saw you, I could see it. I think it's like people say like you wear your grief or you learn how to wear it and that kind of thing.
I think because I'm somewhat of a public figure and by trade I'm out in the open.
Yeah.
I think, and I try to be. I don't play a character. You know, I'm me on stage, but I think that a lot of people think that they like know me, but a very small amount of people like know me. You know, sure. And I think you've quickly become part of that small circle, and that's interesting because, like I said, you see me out in public, and I'm usually pretty. No matter what's going on, otherwise I can be that dude. But you and my wife both noticed, like over a couple of days, that I was just stuff I didn't notice. Yeah. You know, I didn't realize I was being certain ways or coming across. And you even said it was just like in our voice notes online, like just the tone of my voice was off.
Yep.
But
So you mentioned family home. It was your grandparents' house.
Yeah.
So who have we been talking about? Who's this person that we're talking about? Well, we're talking about your mom. Your mom's the one that you lost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And her name. Tell us about your mom.
Yeah.
Tell us about your mom, and then I want you to kind of let us in on like what your experience has been like, what you're going through.
Sure. I will try.
Yeah.
My best here.
And we could let you go all night with this, but I'm going to cut you off at 7.5 minutes.
Yeah, just so you know. I hate getting the light. I hate it.
Yeah, you're about to get the light.
I hate it. So my mom, from what I've always understood, from what people have told me, like always, like as a kid, always wanted to like have a family, like grow up, have a family, get married, have kids. Like that was what you did. And obviously these days, not everybody feels that way, but that was always kind of her, you know, like dream life was to do that. And so she married my dad at 18, had me at 21.
And her name was Deneen.
Deneen was her name. And grew up around, I should even probably say that she was adopted at 3 days old. At 16, she met her biological mother and sister. She didn't even know she had, but never got to find out who her real dad was. That always kind of bugged her. And I don't know if that maybe had something to do with how she looked at men in general in her life, but I'm sure it had something to do with it, you know, the lack of the confusion there. And then my grandma's first husband wasn't a really awesome dude. Not her dad, but
sure.
the other guy. But so she she moved out, got married, had me, and I had my sister 3 years later at 23, and then her and my dad split up. And all of a sudden she's a single mom with a 3-year-old and a newborn baby, and decided to go to nursing school with 2 little kids.
Wow.
And there was a Charlie Brown daycare at Nyack at the time, so she'd drop me off there while she was at class, which was crazy because there was like her classes. I know she didn't do it on purpose, but her classes were scheduled like at really unfortunate times for me. Like she had classes when they laid kids down for naps on cots, but when it's time to go ride 3-wheelers in the gym, all of a sudden it's time to leave, which I always thought was a bunch of bullshit. But little kids don't understand
Set up,
that all the time.
set
You know,
up.
it seemed like it as a selfish, child. I'm like, I don't appreciate this. Maybe you need to talk to the dean about getting some stuff switched around because I'm missing snacks and I'm not tired during nap time. So, I mean,
I'm really good at big wheels.
get with it. Yeah. It's just,
Yeah.
and I got the good one this time. And like, so I just, I'd whip shitties all over the gym. Be like, no, we'll go when I'm ready to go. But, she got her nursing degree and, she met my stepdad when I was 6 and we never really got along, but she was always like, I saw my dad, but like my mom was like my whole life pretty much. Like,
she raised
yeah,
you
like,
and your sister.
Yeah. So like she probably, and I mean, I can admit it. She enabled me big time.
Mm-hmm.
Like always like took care of everything. Like I know we've talked a lot that you've as a mother put yourself in a few different tough positions where you felt like you had to show your kids tough love, which can be heartbreaking, I imagine, at times. My mom never had that muscle to flex. And me and my sister probably took more advantage of it than we should have. But as much as I appreciated that and as comfortable as my life has been, losing her is like jumping into the deep end without being able to swim.
Yeah. So it's crippling. That enabling has really been really crippling.
For sure.
Yeah. So now you're just...
And luckily I got a good wife,
Yeah.
But it's scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Deneen is a single mom for a while, going to school. Gets married, enables her kids. Let me know.
And then just bails. Like, what's the deal? How rude.
Yeah. Sorry, Justin's finishing set of reps.
Yeah, no,
reps.
it's important to drink protein shakes at certain points during this. If there's any pauses, it's definitely not sad emotional moments where I'm trying to get my shit together. I'm probably just doing something really tough. So you can't see that, but just know it's happening. And Tiff's super impressed.
I'm very impressed. So your mom is how old when she passed away?
56.
56 in June.
She had turned 56 this last February.
Okay. And like, do you want to weigh in on like, how does a 56-year-old just like?
Yeah, we can go there.
Yeah, I mean,
we can try.
and you can.
I'm not putting anything off. I'm open to. It's just saying it without getting choked up.
Sure.
That's the only thing.
Yeah.
I'm totally.
So just
that's why
Justin
we're here.
never knows like really what I'm gonna ask, and so I always like to catch him fresh.
I'm gonna
off guard.
get you back.
Yeah. Okay. Oh well.
But
challenge accepted.
yeah, you cried harder than I did, dude. I win. But no, I'm open to being an open book with this thing because I know that that's what's going to make it worthwhile to anybody that's listening, and in turn make it worthwhile to us. So my mom, I would say, everyone's got their own side of the story, and I've got no reason to just bust anyone's character down whether they have it or not. But my stepfather, my mom, I don't know. I think she always liked guys that she thought she could fix.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're fixable or not. And I think she had a hard time admitting when things weren't good because she felt like a failure in that regard, maybe because her first marriage didn't work out like she wanted it to. And, but this dude, didn't treat her well, didn't treat us well. And, she, in the last several years of her life, was not happy, and started drinking. And what started as some wine led to, and again, I don't know for sure the extent. I just know what she told me and was willing to share with me in moments of whether drunken candidness or like, just like I never knew for sure. I'm sure that what I knew was a watered down version of what was really going on in her life, which is super scary because what I know is scary enough, you know. But what started as, you know, some wine over a course of years turned into what she told me was every night she would wake up in the night to chug hard alcohol on her nightstand just to get back to sleep. And then have to start again.
Mm-hmm.
But and what sucked is he was very into supporting that. Misery loves company. And it sucked because I became the enemy
For your
because
mom.
I couldn't support it. You know, I couldn't just. So I was the only one in her life that told her what was up. You know, like, this isn't okay. This can't go on. This has to stop. And she didn't see it for what it was, and saw me as not so much as looking out for her as I was like trying to ruin her good time. Or she had this way of looking at it like, I'm your mom, you're my kid, you don't have any room, right, or reason to tell me what to do with my life. Regardless of what I'm doing, that's not your place. And she would have preferred me just to leave it alone. And I just couldn't do it. So the last couple of years were tough because it had gotten to the point where when I saw her name on my phone, I didn't want to pick it up.
Yeah. A lot of guilt behind that.
Well, the main reason is I didn't know who was going to be on the other line, you know?
Sure.
Because it had become more often than not, I wasn't getting the lady that raised me. I was getting this totally different person when she was drunk who was mean and just, it was rough. And I didn't know how bad it had gotten until last summer, not this year, but last 2019. She took me and my wife on a vacation to California. And that's when I realized how bad it had gotten, because I was around her for an entire week and she had to keep up the amount of alcohol that she drank at home to just get by. And I was able to see just how bad that had gotten. But in the last couple months of her life, we had gotten to a point where she had told me, you know, I'm tired of it. I hate life. I can't live like this. And she talked about wanting to go to rehab for the longest time. She just wanted me to do it for her. She's like, find me a place, find something, stick me somewhere. And I told her, it's like, I can't do that because you have to want it. Because I know I've been around addiction and known enough people that have tried to recover or haven't recovered, or have even some people that everyone in the world can want it for you, but unless you want it for yourself, it ain't going to happen. And people can't just stick you in rehab and fix you. You have to want to be fixed. And so I knew she had to like be active in figuring this out. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And the last month or so, she's like, let's do it. You know, let's get together. My wife works for Veterans Affairs and my stepdad's a veteran, and she helped get my stepdad in a position where my mom could get insurance through the veterans. So she finally, because she had, through her drinking, had lost her nursing job over the year before. Hadn't been working for the last 8 months of her life, just home drinking every day. And I don't want anyone to think I'm like trying to like talk down about my mom.
No, it's a disease.
I was trying to be like super like real about it, you know?
Yeah.
Because I just realized it sounds like I'm just kind of
No.
talking shit. I'm not trying to, but
It was a shitty thing.
yeah.
It's a shitty thing.
But so we were getting ready to just start doing that, and I got a call on a Thursday morning from my mom's phone. And again, I was at a point where I wasn't always grabbing it, because I didn't know for sure, what the deal was. But for some reason, I picked it up. And it was some lady whose voice I didn't recognize. She's like, you gotta get your mom's not breathing. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just scatterbrained, not sure what's going on. I can hear my sister like freaking out. And I'm like, who is this? And she's like, it's a neighbor. Your mom, the ambulance is coming. And I'm like, is that my sister? And she's like, yeah. I was like, put my sister on the phone. And she puts my sister on the phone. And I don't know what's going on, Justin. I don't know. Like, I don't think she's breathing. I don't know. And I'm like, where's he at? My stepdad. I don't really want to say his name.
Yeah. Okay.
But she's like, he's talking to the cops. And I'm like, I'm on my way. I found out later that he yelled at my sister for telling me. He doesn't need to know what's going on. That puts into perspective the kind of dude this guy is. But she only lives 5 blocks from me. So I jump in the car and I haul ass over there. And the ambulance is there and it's pulling away. She's already in the ambulance. And the cops are talking to my stepdad on the stoop. And I'm like, what's going on? Because I know they're living crazy. You know what I mean? I know it's nuts over there. And I'm like, what's going on? And I've told her, I'm like, you're going to die. If you don't stop living like this, you're going to die. And like, I never really thought it would happen. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's happening in this moment. And I'm like, he's standing there and he's like, she's fine. She's going to be fine. And he was more mad that I was saying that they were living crazy when the cops were there. Because he saw that as me being a snitch, I guess. But whatever. But I didn't even care that those cops were there. I wasn't even thinking straight. And I came in and my sister's in there losing her mind. And I'm like, the cop says to me, he's like, he could see I was the only one that had it together in some way, shape, or form. And he's like, you need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because she's not good and you need to be there. So I try to get my sister. She's like, no, I can't. I don't want to go. And I didn't feel like I had time to screw around. So called my wife as I'm bolting down the road. I picked her up from her job. She left on a whim and we got there. And we got pulled into a room and some doctors came and told me they did everything they could, but they couldn't get her back. And then he didn't even come to the hospital. And I went back there to tell him because I thought he had a right to know. And somehow they'd gotten a hold of him in the time that I was driving back there. And he tried to pick a fight with me because I shouldn't be at his house. And luckily my wife stopped me from doing anything stupid. And we went through the funeral process and he was in complete control of that. I'm just glad I got to have one, I guess.
Yeah.
But he has her remains. I haven't seen them. I don't know if or when I will. And now we're about 4.5 months out. Now he's trying to put the final nail in the coffin and take my house from me. So somehow I got through that, but that's basically my half of why I'm here doing this show, because everybody's got fucked up shit and it's hard to talk about, but I think if we normalize talking about it more, then I think everybody wins. Everybody's, because it makes it
happen.
easier.
It happens. This happens. It's
real. And I know it's probably weird for some people because, like I said, I'm a stand-up comic and people are used to me being the funny guy, which I much prefer to be.
Sure.
But life is real and it's not always pretty. And
I think it's hard for people to understand who've never lost, and like, you don't have to have a manifesto of people you've lost to be able to listen and to relate or to know how to speak to to people who have or do have like this binder.
That was one thing. Someone approached me at the store and said that they'd listened, and they said just listening to the first episode and the stuff we talked about made them realize that they've never had to go through anything even close to what we've been talking about, and that you take things for granted. You know, anything, little things up to big things, you take things for granted when you don't have to, like, just having those people around. You know what I mean? Like, for example, me, like, and everything has perspective, and sometimes you can use other people's experiences to gain perspective for yourself without having to, you know, cross that road, I guess. Like, to go back to me taking that extra beat before I answered the phone when my mom called. Like, do I even want to deal with this right now? Like, is she going to be drunk? Is she going to be mean? Is this just going to be drama added to my day that I don't need? And now, like, I'd give anything.
Yeah.
For even just like one more call.
I get that.
So if anything, it's, you know, appreciate the little things and the big things. Try to grasp everything in your life for what it really is, and how important it is, or even not important. Try not to let the not important things take up so much of your space.
It's like being conscious all the time. And like, you know, people talk about being in the present moment. It's about being conscious and aware and taking a pause, seeing life for what it really is. And so it's hard to do that because we get caught up, you know.
Yeah.
We get really caught up easy. So,
but that's what I'm dealing with, you know. That's where life is right now.
That's what it looks like for a son to be grieving his young mother. Yeah.
Pretty lame. Pretty lame.
The lamest.
Especially because she always like really full of life and youthful, you know, like, I don't know if it's the Greek in us that just look younger. Not me. I don't know. There's something in me that's aging something fierce, but I don't know. It's fighting the Greek real hard. Like, it's like, I don't think so, buddy. You can have beautiful curly hair, just not on the top of your head. But we would get often, we'd go places and people would think that she was having an affair or that I was her brother, you know, and it's like, I don't know if that was a testament to how great she looked or just how awful I looked.
I have had an experience with Ethan at the hospital. Somebody asked me if I was his girlfriend.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Like, well, that's really gross, but thank you.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I can't pull chicks that look as good as my mom. What are you talking about? Now that just got weird, didn't it?
That did get weird.
But no, I don't, and again, it's, you know, it's the stupid cliches like one day at a time, you know, but what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah, what else do you got?
Because like you said, for you this week, it was the snow, you know, and made you realize, and I thought about that too. I told you in that same moment when I went outside that morning, I thought like, this is the first snow that she's not around for. Like, the world keeps going.
Yeah.
Here's the snow. It's here. She died in June. Summer's gone. Snow's here, and nothing's slowing down. And it happened to me a lot the first couple of weeks, like the littlest things, like sunsets. You know, this beautiful sunset that my mom's not going to get to see, like, or like, my wife said that she has a habit of thinking about people she's lost, that like they're just some, like, especially before a funeral, like she can tell herself like they're just somewhere else right now. They're, on vacation or something. And like, it's just, I don't know for sure where I was going with that.
Well, I think parts of that are like, I don't know if it's healthy compartmentalizing. I don't even know if that's a double entendre. I'm not sure. But like sometimes you just have to tell yourself whatever it is that you need to get through the moment.
Yeah.
I lie to myself daily.
It's very important.
Before this happened, I was lying to myself, But
the lies are how you know you're on track.
now I'm really going hard. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
Are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hit me with it.
I think how I'd first like to begin is, how old were you when you became a mom?
Okay. So I got pregnant when I was 16. And I had Ethan when I was 17. Got pregnant. I was living in my car. I had like a 1978 Bonneville with no heat.
They're very roomy, though.
They're so
really
roomy.
Are. I had a 79.
Yeah.
So.
My spare bedroom was the trunk.
Yeah. If you need to get away from your spouse or whoever, there's plenty. You can get away. Just go to the...
Yeah. So, I had him when I was 17, living on my own and with his dad and just struggling just to try to make it, I just felt like always this kid was like me and him against the world. Like we just had every odd stacked against us. And I remember I'm 16. I'm like 5 months pregnant. I haven't told any of my family. And I'm at Cashwise grocery at like 3:00 in the morning because of course I'm insomniac and I can't sleep. And I didn't want the public to see me pregnant because it was like the boom of teenage pregnancy. And it was all over, like a bad commercial.
I'm not a
like,
statistic.
Yeah, you too can prevent teenage pregnancy. Well, now you tell me. Yeah. So I'm going to get a couple groceries, whatever, for this little shitty apartment that his dad and I had together. And I remember there was another, it probably wasn't 3 a.m. It was late though. There was a girl in there with a baby Think It Over. You know what those are?
Yeah.
The babies
for
in the car
sure.
seat. She's my age. And I remember this older couple saying something to the mom of this young girl that said, "Oh, this is just such a great idea because, teenage pregnancy is such a tragedy." And I'm just like, I'm just going to get these Whoppers and get up out of here. It was just like, I felt so small. Oh, man. And so I kind of just, that really solidified that I had pretty much no support. Like the world wasn't supporting teen moms. Not that they do now, but
Yeah, they weren't giving them TV shows.
they weren't giving them TV shows. And, but I also had something to prove.
Yeah, do you feel like because everybody thought you couldn't, you're like, watch me, I totally can?
Oh, you bet. You bet 100%. I came from a really crazy upbringing too. Like my mom was an alcoholic and my dad was never around. My stepdad was a pretty bad dude. And so it was just like, I so badly wanted to break the cycle, but it seems impossible. Unless you have a reason.
Right.
And poof, I had a reason.
There it was.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to backtrack a little, but it's all going to make sense when we get to the finish line. Your sister that passed away, was she, remind me again, was she your older or your younger
she's 14
sister?
months older than me.
Older than
Yep.
you. And the two of you grew up together.
Yep.
Can you kind of touch on a little bit what it was like, just your two's relationship growing up?
Yeah.
Together?
So Jen's 14 months or 15 months, something like that, older than me. We were raised as twins. We look identical. Our voices are identical. Same sense of humor. Laugh at our own jokes. Like all the good stuff. And we just went through some heavy stuff as kids, but we had each other, and she stepped in the line of fire many times for me. I found out later growing up, she took a lot more, shrapnel, I guess, than I did. And we were just loyal to each other just because, if you're lucky enough to have a sibling that you have a good relationship with, I think it's one of the most important relationships you ever have. I think it is the most important. It's interesting. It's just, they're interesting. And so, yeah, we just, that's kind of what we did. We just
and then
looked out for each other.
Would you say kind of early on she was kind of the bigger sister for you, and then I know you've kind of told me that in your adult lives you kind of felt like you had to take on the big sister role for her?
She struggled with mental illness, as a lot of people do, but a lot like the teenage pregnancy thing, like it's just something you didn't talk about. And it just manifested as she got older, trauma from our childhood, and then just slipping through the cracks of the system all the time as an adult, and then, it made her an easy victim to be victimized by other people. And so she got pretty sick, and a lot of my years as an adult were spent taking care of her, digging her out of holes and scooping in to try to be the savior, because our parents were just not available to us. And so we just took care of each other. So that was what I did. So I took care of her, and she just got so sick that I just had to step away and be like, all right, man, listen, I love you and I want to help you, but until you're ready for it, I gotta step out. And always just keeping in mind, like, she'll reach out. She'll reach out.
That's kind of where I was towards the end with Mom too.
Yeah. You trust it. You just trust that they'll reach out, that they're strong enough to finally just be like, all right, I really need to dig myself out. And she had hit, if there ever was a rock bottom, like, she was there. And just, you do the tough love thing, and sometimes you win some and sometimes you lose some. And didn't turn out the way I wanted it to.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, she took her life, and I watched it for years happen, and it just, her walk in the darkness just, it took her. And so it took a lot of years of processing through that. Like, if you've ever lost someone to suicide, it's a really confusing, like, grief is confusing. We talked about that a little bit. When you lose someone to suicide, it's real confusing. And it took me a long time to get there, where it was like, okay, I get it. I understand. I've accepted it. I went through the anger part of it, and the questioning and the guilt and all that stuff, and you process through that all, and then you're just like, you just are like, okay, this happened, and now she's not here. And, like, I don't really believe in soulmates necessarily, but we were definitely tethered.
Mm-hmm.
And she would always tell me that I was like her soulmate. And yeah. And then she was just gone.
Do you feel like your experiences with her throughout life, her mental illness, things that happened through your childhood, had a big effect on your relationships with your kids and how you decide to
yeah.
parent?
Yes. Yes. Good question. So Ethan struggled with the same mental illness as my sister, and we didn't really know what we were looking at until he was well into his teens. And it had gotten bad. It had gotten really bad. He was a gamer, and he used it to escape, and what I saw was just a teenager who gamed too much and was throwing his life away because of it. He chose to ignore the anger and the not showering for 11 days and the insomnia and the bad eating habits and that sort of thing. And I focused on the fact that my son just quit high school and started staying in his room because he was addicted to video games. And what I didn't realize was that he was seriously struggling with mental illness. And I had suspected it as he was growing up because we had, a lot of on and off again type behavioral stuff. But I had him tested. You do all the things that you think you are supposed to do as a parent. You read all the books and you talk to all the people and you do all the prayers and you take them to the doctors and it's just, there was never any clear anything. But again, the mental health system's really broken. And so in the midst of trying to do all that with him, I had my sister who was over here really sick and just, losing custody of her children and falling into all kinds of trouble and disparity. And so we finally discovered that we were really dealing with something darker than just a video game addiction after he drove his car into a tree half a block away, like 2 weeks before Christmas. And so, but we also knew, and I am a firm believer and still stand firm with the tough love thing that I did with my sister, that I knew that if I continue to enable him, which we talked about earlier, is really crippling. And at some point you have to push your kids to try to do for themselves, and so I did the tough love approach again, and I had to legally evict the kid because he wasn't going anywhere. He's digging his heels in, and we had the police at our house so many times, and him being taken in handcuffs, and which, by the way, like, the police are just so underqualified for any type of mentally disturbed anything, and so the very last time that he was in our house, he was taken out by the police in handcuffs because he had a box cutter that he was gonna, and so, but I held firm, and I told him in the hospital, you can do this. You don't know what you're capable of until you're backed into a corner, and you're gonna overcome. I know it. I know you will. And he hated me. Right.
And I know a decent amount of time went by where you guys, really didn't talk for a little while because of that. Do you want to kind of touch on how that ended and how you guys kind of reconciled?
Yeah. So he left February 5th of, 19, and then
1819.
He came back. No, he left February 5th, 19. I was trying to say 18.
So he's not 19, a Revolutionary War ghost. No. Good.
Got that cleared up. So February 5th, and then came back around March 15th of 2020. That's his sister's birthday. And so he came in, and he was just, arms crossed, just wanting to let me know he was still mad at me. And whatever.
But in the way that you wanted to prove everyone wrong that you could be a parent, he was stoked to prove to you, because I know he had gotten a job and he started his own place and a car and
Yep.
was building a computer.
Yeah. And like had taken that year to learn about his mental illness, to get himself right, to essentially overcome.
So that moment for you, I assume, was the moment where you realized that that really hard thing you had to do was the right thing to do.
Yep.
Because it helped him in the long run.
Yeah. And, even though it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to with my sister, I knew I was doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that in my gut with Ethan too. And this time it worked out.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk just a little bit about Ethan's troubles with his back?
Yeah. So Ethan, he was like 6'4", a big kid. And he had this massive growth spurt when he was like 15. And we started noticing that he had a little curvature in his shoulders. And so he was diagnosed with scoliosis and kyphosis when he was like 18. But because he grew so fast and he was so massive, we kind of had to wait until his body stopped kind of growing, slowing down a little bit, and kind of get the courage up to do something about it, because we knew that we were against like some pretty gnarly surgeries and stuff. So he's newly 22, and he had a back of like a 75-year-old man.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got a teenager or early 20-something-year-old that you make a crazy decision in your heart that you think is the right one to send him out to figure things out on his own. And he does. And he comes home and you guys are enjoying each other. I know you guys got to go on a vacation to Colorado together. And the decision gets made to fix Ethan's back. It's time. After waiting however long, it's time. You're going to Iowa City to see what you understand are the most capable doctors around,
Right.
to do what is a very dangerous and serious surgery that is going to change his life. It's going to open up opportunities to him that he didn't have before, which pairs really nicely with all the other decisions he's made in his life to, move forward and kind of start his adult life. And you're getting to be a part of that. So here we are going to Iowa City to have this surgery. And I know this is the hard part, but walk us through that week.
Yeah. So September 3rd, we have an 11.5-hour surgery, and he kills it. Like, comes out of the surgery wiggling his toes, and I'm in the PICU with him, the pediatric intensive care, while they take him off the ventilator and take him out of this kind of twilight state. And, I'm like, hey, I'm here, buddy. I'm here, squeeze my hand. So he, squeezes my hand with his gigantic talons.
I did find a little bit of humor in it, a 6'4" dude in a pediatric unit.
I know.
But
Yeah. So 6'6" after surgery. So he's just this massive human. And so pull him off the vent. Spent the all night and morning in the intensive care, trying to get his pain regulated, and we get up. He gets up the very next day, stands up, gets into the wheelchair. All the while I'm like documenting this all and taking videos, and he's pissed about it, and I can tell. He's like, I just wish you'd stop videoing me, he said like midway through the week. And so then we get transferred to a recovery floor, and things are kind of just progressing per normal. He's checking the boxes, and he's doing the walks, and he's mobile. He's not really eating much, but, he's on a lot of narcotics and stuff. And then we just kind of I'd say about after day 3 or 4, he just never really had a good day after that. Like we that last good day, we went to the courtyard and we sat in the sun, because we hadn't done that. We hadn't felt the sun on our skin for 5 days. And we just kept having like setbacks. And day 8, I decided I was going to check into a hotel because I needed to sleep. I hadn't slept because this was like the most demanding patient. Every 15 minutes he needed something. And so I was going to be there to, aid. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the hotel. I'm going to get some sleep. I'm going to come back tomorrow morning because you're going to have slept and we are going to get out of here. We're going to both be strong enough to get out of here tomorrow. And I check into the hotel. I eat some bad Chinese food and take a shower. And I get a call from Ethan, his phone, which I thought was crazy because he hadn't even been able to be strong enough to even lift his cell phone. So he calls me. He's like, oh, Mom, I'm just so sick and I'm throwing up. And I'm thinking, what are you throwing up? Because you've had 2 grapes to eat in the last 48 hours. And so at that point, I kind of had put the pieces together that he probably had some sort of obstruction in his belly, and we'd have to go in with what's called an NG tube. It goes in through your nose, into your belly, drains all this crud out of there, and you feel like $1,000,000. And so they do the NG tube about 4:00 in the morning, and then he's just restless, and I'm waiting hand and foot on him, and I was like, let's get up and go sit in the recliner. Like you were comfortable there earlier today. Let's try it. He's like, okay. So he gets up out of bed and he just makes a beeline to the bathroom, and I'm holding on to him because, he's just kind of acting a little nutty. And so we start walking, and I was like, oh, okay, we're going to the bathroom. And we go in, and I can see his face in the mirror. And he just said, I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out. And he grabbed onto my arm really hard. And I was like, no, buddy, nope. You're 240 pounds, 6'6". I can't, and first, I don't know how, but I was able to kind of get him over and set him down. And I'm yelling for help. And he sort of just slumps over and turns this what I call a bad color. And I pulled his face to me, and I'm like, come on, I was like, what's going on, dude? Come on, and I could just tell his eyes were fixed, and he had a full cardiac event. And so I kind of fall back on the floor, and by that time these nurses are in there, and they're, and I'm like, what's going on? And they all have the same look, and I don't think I'll ever be able to ever erase it, just terror. They're mirroring me, and they can't control it. And that is when I realized, we're in trouble. And so he was down for about 8 minutes, and they lost his pulse. And they brought him back, and 8 minutes might as well be a lifetime when your brain doesn't get any oxygen and your organs take a hit. And so they have him on life support for 2 days. And on the 11th of September, we just made the best call, like we always had done for Ethan. So we always did what we thought was best.
And he was how old?
Just turned 22. Yeah. So fresh. Barely even had a couple drinks, celebrated in his lifetime, all of this new amazing freedom, and leaving home, February 5th, a boy, and returning a man.
I haven't mentioned it to you since. But something I think about quite a bit. When thinking about this stuff is, I don't know if you remember the message I sent you the night before. Obviously completely coincidental because neither of us could have guessed what was going to happen the next day. I'm paraphrasing my own message. I don't know exactly word for word what it said, but it was something to the extent that someone who had lost their mom only a few months ago, and the only feeling I was having every day was just a wanting for my mom, which was like a hole that could like never be filled again. And I watched all that you went through that week through your videos and through, our talking to each other and all that. And I just let you know that I thought that even though I didn't know Ethan, I knew that he was never going to go through anything that hard in his life, and that if I was going through something like that there's nothing I would want more than to have my mom there. And I told you that you were a really good mom for being there next to him, and I had no idea just how big of a statement that would be in the next 24 hours. But I think it's important for you to remember that. It's just as true as it was when he was still with us as it is now. I think I'll get to know more and more about you as the longer we're friends, and I'm sure I'll be lucky enough to learn more about Ethan as you tell me stuff. But I think the reason that there were so many people at that funeral and so many people that missed that kid all over the world, which you found out later through his video games, with the internet, you can make friends without ever having to meet them. And what was the number of people that watched the online stream?
It's like 400 and some people. Yeah, it's crazy.
I think a very big part of the reason that kid was so well liked and so missed and so mourned that day is because of a lot of the stuff that you instilled in him as his mom. And as you go through all this bullshit, I think you should take some pride in that. I didn't mean to work us into a shoot where we're both crying. One of us should be able to handle it. Well,
I am making a protein
I kind of screwed
shake.
us over.
I am actually making a protein shake.
We went a little longer than we expected to, but this was something I think we both felt we needed to clear a bunch of air, before. Because I think as we get into more specific topics as we go,
we want you to know.
It was important for us to know why we're where we are and why the things we're talking about and the feelings that we have are happening in a very specific, real way.
Yeah.
So that you can.
And I think we have to talk about our people. And so if you're out there and you're listening to this, force yourself to talk about your person.
Yeah, as much as that sucked just now to do.
Yes.
And to purposefully take ourselves back there. It feels good at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And people want to know. Not everybody. Not everybody. The teller at the bank doesn't want to know about your dead husband, but there are people that do.
And now, when we run into people we haven't seen forever at the store and they're like, "How are you holding up?" Be like, "Well, listen to episode 2. I think that should sum it up for you quite well." Episode 3 is even crazier. Because that's another hard part is as you go, the things that remind you. You think you're starting to get through it and getting a baseline, and then I heard about your son. Do you want to talk about that a bunch with me, even though we don't know each other that well? And you're like, no, I don't.
No, not really.
So they might as well say hey, heard life's going bad. Feel like crying right now? That's not. They mean well, I think. I think. I don't know.
I don't know. I think some people. But yeah, so as we kind of navigate and move through this, we've got we're going to talk about different topics. We're going to investigate like what happens to the brain. We're going to talk to some like real scientific types like about what happens to your
We're going
brain.
to learn.
We're going to learn, you guys.
Yeah.
I like learning, not about everything. But
Yeah. Sometimes I learn stuff that I wish I could unlearn, but I can't.
oh,
There's
well,
consequences to everything, even learning stuff. But I think this was a big one for us. I think
yeah.
it was scary and necessary at the same time. I think we knew coming in today that
Yep.
we didn't tell each other what we were going to ask each other, but I think we both knew it was going to get pretty heavy duty.
Yeah.
And when you know it, we were right. But keep listening, guys.
Yeah.
Keep giving us feedback. Keep letting us know what you think. Let us know your ideas. Let us know anything.
Yeah.
Let us know if you're like, this is stupid. You should quit doing that.
We hate this.
You're a bummer. Knock it off. Talk about funny stuff again.
Also, Friends with Death Benefits is going to be available on some pretty sweet platforms.
Yeah, within the next week, hopefully this episode, in fact, will be on Spotify, Apple Music.
Some other platforms we're not.
A couple other different ones. Yeah, we'll stay tuned for us to figure exactly out what we're doing. We'll post that in real time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Until then,
yeah,
hang in there.
definitely.